My man Jeff is a financial advisor, and he had a couple questions about Bitcoin. So I'm going to answer those questions for Jeff and you all here today. Now, I want to start off by saying that I've spoken at conferences all over the world. I've written 2 books on Bitcoin that have been #1 Amazon bestsellers in the world. And I've spoken at hedge funds, at headquarters, and from the people that have just told me. So this isn't necessarily everybody that's benefited from what I've shared, but this is just the people who've told me about their Bitcoin purchases and what they've done with them. I've helped people make over $100 million in profit so far. And I say that one as as a brag. I hope that you listen and pay attention because that's real and that's accurate. And I hope, I get to pat myself on the back a little bit, but 2, I hope it helps you understand like the stakes that are set here. I mean, we're not talking about something small. We're not talking about something trivial. We're talking about like life-changing wealth, understanding something, a paradigm shift that's happening in your lifetime. The people who have paid attention to paradigm shifts and that learned about them before other people were the ones who benefited most greatly. So my buddy Jeff is a financial advisor. Jeff's not his real name, so when you guys have questions and send them to me, I'm not going to out your real name. Jeff might not even be a guy, but Jeff, this individual, truly is a financial advisor, and he had some questions because his clients are wanting to know more about Bitcoin. And so he had some really good questions. His first question was, or it's actually a 2-part question. He said, what problem does Bitcoin actually solve? And is fiat money so bad that we actually need to get rid of it? And now this is a great question. And so, Jeff, you answered the first question with the second question, but let me elaborate. The problem Bitcoin solves is the problem of fiat currency. And so for anybody watching who doesn't know what a fiat currency is, it's essentially either a government currency, a central bank currency, or something that is just decreed to have value. Fiat just means by decree. So why does your money have value? Because the government or the central bank says it does. What is the US dollar backed by? It's not backed by gold, not since 1971. It's backed by the quote, full faith and credit of the US government. So if you have full faith and credit in the US government, then by all means continue to be a fan of the US dollar. Now, so what's the inherent problem with fiat currency? Well, let me give you a few answers to that. Fiat currencies, if you study all fiat currencies throughout history, they have a 100% failure rate. So we could just stop there. That's it. I almost don't want to give you more answers because I think that saying more answers, it waters down the message about how profound of a statement or how profound of a fact that is. Fiat currencies have a 100% failure rate. They almost always don't even last past like 12 years. I think the average fiat currency lasts about 12 years. Side note, the record for shortest fiat currency is one of the versions of the Nigerian Naira. I think it lasted about 2 months. It lasted from, I think it was February 2009 to April 2009. So that's obviously the extreme case. The US dollar has been in its current form since 1971, so a little over 50 years. So it's kind of well past what a traditional fiat currency lives for. It'll continue to live on for a little bit longer, but rest assured that fiat currencies have a 100% failure rate. Now, the important thing to note if we study monetary history is that when fiat currencies fail, societies always revert to fixed supply money. This is typically gold and silver. In the German hyperinflation, the Weimar hyperinflation, they went over to another type of government currency. It was land backed. So anyways, without getting into the details there, when fiat currencies eventually crumble because they all die, there's a period of time where society just has to, out of necessity, has to go to a fixed supply form of money to fix their problems, to right their wrongs. It's like the frat boy that just goes and lives crazy, and then every once in a while he's trying to clean up his life, so he goes back home to mom and dad. That's gold and silver to get his life right. But then once things get good again, he starts to go and live crazy again. Now, I can make a whole entire different video on why gold and silver are good, but I don't think they're going to be the fix for this time around. And in a nutshell, it's just because we live in a digital age, and gold and silver are not digital. Even digital representations of gold and silver are not a good fix, and we can talk about that another time. Now, fiat currencies, one of the other problems with them, moving on from the 100% failure rate fact, which should be, again, the entire answer to the question is the US dollar will 100% fail. I'm not rooting for it to fail, but it just will, because that's what fiat currencies do. That's their life cycle. The second point is that they can be created at will. And now we all know this, but it's almost one of those things, because we all know it, we tend to not worry about it. It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen any of the like behavioral psychology videos where they show people are sitting in a room, and or they're like in an office building, and somebody sees smoke under the door, and the person ends up not panicking because they look around and nobody else seems to be panicked because they see smoke under the door. And this was just a test, but nobody panics because nobody else is panicking. But then if that was a real fire, then everybody in the building would have died, sadly, because nobody panicked. Now, I'm not saying we should go out and panic, but the fact that fiat currencies can be created at will, you and I have to work for something that another man can just create out of thin air. That's not the basis for a good monetary system. And because people don't panic, that's not a good reason to trust in it. Now, let me give you an example. If you were playing a game of Monopoly and you got $200 every time you pass go, but the banker got to choose how much he got every time he passed go, would that be the kind of game that you want to play? Now, on the contrary, Bitcoin, like gold, is something that you can only get three ways. You can either mine it, you can trade for it, like you can buy it, or you can earn it. Those are the three ways you can get it. You cannot magically make more of it appear. So it's a type of rule system that governs this, which is way different than fiat currencies. Now, third, there's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. The problem with fiat is that it's infinite. We got a very clear view of this from COVID, right? The Federal Reserve, all of their people were saying, you guys don't need to worry, society's not going to crumble, because guess what? We at the Federal Reserve can create new units of currency with just a few strokes of a keyboard. Now, at the time, they were saying that to make sure people didn't panic, but what it really showed was how ridiculous our monetary system is. Somebody right now is creating more money units out of thin air. The money in your wallet is not increasing. You have the same amount of money, currency, that you had 5 minutes ago, but it's already been diluted because somebody somewhere with a keyboard is diluting it. That's a really big problem. But Bitcoin, on the contrary, there's only ever going to be 21 million units. That's the fixed supply. There's only so many of them. So you do not have to worry that your share of the Bitcoin network is being diluted every second, every day, because there's only ever going to be 21 million. Now, we're born with this idea that money has to lose value over time. So a lot of people, again, going back to this idea of, oh, well, nobody else is freaking out. It's because we've been brought up over several generations to think that money is supposed to lose value over time. But it's kind of like the food pyramid. We were raised to think that we're supposed to eat cereal in the morning with lots of sugar because that's going to pep you up for the day, and you should eat lots of bread throughout the day. The food pyramid we were told it was healthy, but it's actually like really unhealthy. But we believed it because the experts said it, and nobody panicked over it. But time was not a friend to the food pyramid. And I think the same thing's happening with money right now. It's a false narrative. Your money is not supposed to lose value over time. Now, it's one of those things where if you're a financial advisor, I think it's really important that we start to get the word out on this, because your clients have money that we're told, Dave Ramsey tells us to save money. But when that money is being diluted, it's very important that we help people understand what's happening to their money, that it's literally being rotten away. It's like a termite infested wall. The wall is still standing upright. It looks like it's still there, but it's being eaten from the inside out. And that's exactly what's happening to your client's money. And I'm sure you're telling them, they're coming to you because you're getting them to do things like invest in the S&P 500, or you're getting them to invest in stocks, which is a much better place for money to be than sitting in cash. But nonetheless, we do have some money sitting in cash, or some of your clients might get an inheritance. They might keep $500,000 in cash because they don't know what to do with it. That money is rotting away. We are being bad stewards of our money if we leave it in fiat currency. Now, if you like I said, there's like no law of nature that money's supposed to lose value over time. And that this is only true with fiat currencies, though. Money only loses value in fiat currencies over time. When you go to a fixed supply form of money, your buying power or your value, it goes up over time. Like that just happens, because if your money supply is fixed or it's limited, but the value, the productivity of your economy keeps increasing, the economy keeps going up, but the unit by which you measure it stays the same. So inherently, each unit of currency or each unit of money at that point will inherently become more valuable. Now, if you're asking or suggesting that your clients invest in something like the S&P 500, it's probably because you believe that the economy is going to perpetually increase over time. I mean, we have things like AI and robotics and all sorts of things that are going to improve the wealth of humanity. Again, whatever you think about those individual things, the wealth of our economy is undoubtedly going to increase. And so what happens in a fiat system is typically the units of currency increase faster than the productivity and the wealth that you build in the economy. So you never see an appreciation in buying power in fiat money. But when you only have 21 million units of money, you will definitely feel the increase in the value of the economy because it's only being measured by 21 million. Now, you asked a really good question. What is the ultimate goal of Bitcoin? What purpose does it serve? Well, again, a really, really good question. The answer is actually in the title of the Bitcoin white paper. The Bitcoin white paper is titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Now, there's two main answers here, and let me elaborate on that initial answer there. There's kind of two parts to this answer. Bitcoin, first of all, removes middlemen from transactions. And two, it was the first ever functional form of digital money because it solved something called the double spend problem. And I'll elaborate on that. So first off, removing middlemen is a really, really profound problem that Bitcoin solves. Most people don't realize that typically in any given transaction, there's 5 parties involved. Let me explain what I mean by that. If I were to go into your store right now and buy a cup of coffee, there's going to be 5 parties involved in that transaction. There's me, who wants to spend the money. Then I pull out my credit card that's issued by my bank, or it's tied to my bank account. So, if I have Wells Fargo is going to need to approve that transaction. Visa and MasterCard is going to be the payment rail across which that payment is delivered. Then it's going to go to your bank for approval. Let's say you have US Bank. And then finally, Jeff, it's going to go to you and land in your bank account. So there's 5 parties at least involved in every transaction. So we call these people third parties or middlemen. They're not like third parties. They're like 4th and 5th parties typically. But for simplicity's sake, we'll just call them middlemen. Bitcoin removes the need for middlemen. Historically, we've always needed middlemen, and we needed gatekeepers to facilitate electronic transactions because we needed an objective third party. This was ensuring that one of the parties wasn't being fraudulent in recording the transaction, right? So we actually had a purpose for middlemen up until this point. These middlemen they can charge you fees, and they can even block transactions, though. So there's actually a dark side. They serve a purpose, but there's a dark side, or maybe not a dark side is a strong word, but there's a negative to having these middlemen, without a doubt, because certainly these middlemen are not doing it for free. There's fees and there's latency that happens because of all these parties that are involved. Bitcoin removes these middlemen by allowing individuals to send electronic payments from one person to another without a third party. The Bitcoin blockchain facilitates these transactions without bias, censorship, or even the ability to do those things. Like Bitcoin cannot be biased. It cannot censor transactions. It's just a simple code that does exactly what it's told. So if it's told to send $5 from person A to person B, it just executes the command. It's a monetary system that has rules without rulers. I'll say that again because I think it's really important. It's a monetary system that has rules without rulers. The other part of what makes Bitcoin really special, or actually probably so revolutionary, is that its creation marks the first time that humans were ever able to figure out a way to cap the supply of digital things. So why is that so important? You could never have a true form of digital money unless you could cap it. Let's look at music, and I'll explain what I mean by that. When music went from analog, like CDs, records, tapes, those types of things, when music went from analog to digital, things like Napster and LimeWire appeared. And these things sucked all the economic value out of the music industry. And why was it a problem? Because it used to be that you could listen to the music if you had the analog thing. If you had the record or the CD or whatever, you would have had to have paid for it to get it. But once music went digital, what's the thing that can happen with digital? You can copy and paste it. There's no limiting factor. I can copy and paste it. I can put it on a website, and an infinite amount of downloads can happen from that one file. And so it took the music industry about 10 years to figure out a new economic model once music could be copied and pasted endlessly. Now, you can't have a form of money where everyone can just copy and paste their own money as much as they want. Like, as bad as I just said that the central bank is, because it can copy and paste money, or it can create money with a few strokes of a keyboard. You couldn't have digital money before Bitcoin, because then everybody was a central bank. Essentially, everybody could create their own money. So that's why we never had true digital money. We always had digital IOUs. Banks would send a digital IOU to one another, but we never had natively digital money. Bitcoin solved that problem by solving, quote, what's called, quote, the double spend problem. And anytime you hear double spend problem, just think somebody copying and pasting money into their own account, right? Like counterfeiting is like another form of double spending. So how do you prevent digital money from being counterfeited? How do you prevent digital money from being copied and pasted endlessly? Bitcoin solved that problem. It was the first time in human history that digital things could be capped. That's incredibly important. The more you sit and think of it, like it's a very, very profound thing. And I hope that people do sit and think about what that means, because I think it helps open up your eyes to how important Bitcoin is. And that's not the only thing that Bitcoin solves. There are actually many, many more things. This is really just the tip of the iceberg. There's things like censorship resistance. Let me grab a copy of Bitcoin Evangelism. I mean, if you're interested in learning more about Bitcoin and you want to explain to you at like a very simple level in simple terms, I highly suggest anybody that's watching this gets a copy of Bitcoin Evangelism. I promise you, if you read this, if you even read half of this book, you're going to understand Bitcoin. And if you understand Bitcoin, you're going to be better off than 99% of the rest of the world. Do you want some alpha in your life? Do you want like an advantage that not everybody has? If you can understand Bitcoin, you will be ahead of humanity. So I actually guarantee it. If you read this book and you don't understand Bitcoin afterwards, I will give you your money back. like it's not because I want to make a bunch of money off books. Writing books is not a way to get rich unless you write Harry Potter. It's because I want people to understand this. It's really, really important. And so, Jeff, I thank you for your question, man. This was such an important thing. And if you have follow-up questions, I would love to answer them there. I was gonna try and answer you like in like a YouTube short format, but I thought being able to kind of let these things air out a little bit and explain them a little bit more would be helpful. So if you guys have any questions that you want answered about Bitcoin, I would be happy to answer them, and I won't put your name out there. You could be like Jeff, the financial advisor, and remain anonymous. So thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.